So the way that I like to view sword fighting a lot of times is I actually view it as a gunfight. So my sword is a gun, and their sword's a gun, and wherever it's pointing, they're going to get shot. Okay? If it's not pointing at you, you're not going to get shot. You're going to get pistol whipped instead. Okay? So then I view my sword like it's just a wall. So in other words, if I have my gun pointed at you, you want to hide behind the wall, right?
Right.
Boom. So now you're hidden behind this wall, so I'm going to shoot behind you. Okay, so I have a couple options. I can step around the wall and try and shoot you, right?
Yep.
Or I can move the wall and then shoot you.
Okay.
One of the reasons why this is important is because it helps kind of with the whole blade taper thing, where like, if your sword is thin right here, and I'm right here, it's easier for me to peek around the wall because it's a thin wall. So when someone like parries with their edge, which is not necessarily a bad thing, there's just sometimes you want to parry with the flat. When you parry with the edge, I can sneak around that wall even easier. But I have a harder time moving the wall.
Right.
If you parry with your flat, now it's a thicker wall. I have a harder time peeking around the wall, but I can move the wall easier. So I kind of view it like a gunfight. The first line is the first place they're going to shoot you.
Okay.
Okay? So right now, the first line's the foot, you're going to get shot in the foot, right? And then the second line is the second place they're going to shoot you. There's a wall in the way there, so now I'm going to shoot you here in the arm instead, right? So when it comes to covering the first and the second line, we put our sword in the way of the first line so that now instead of shooting you, you're essentially deflecting the bullet, right? So the first line's covered. If I go forward, it's deflected off to the side, so you know that I'm going to go to the second line and shoot it.
Okay.
Okay? And so now we talk about, do we want to cover the second line defensively when we're chilling, right? So now it'd be like if you want to cover the second line, your hand's going to be here preemptively. And now I'm not really going to go for the first line or the second line because there's two walls.
Right.
So now I have to go around to the next place to go to shoot you. So you know that. You know I'm going to go there, so you know you're able to parry there, right?
Yep.
So you can preemptively cover both lines whenever you fence, wherever you move. You're just always keeping both lines covered, making them go to the next round, right? And then you know where that next line is. Or you can just cover one line and cover a complete another line to just make them not attack there. So right now, you wouldn't even want to attack my upper left side, right?
Right.
You'd only want to attack down the center, which we had talked about before. Okay? So you can either preemptively cover both, you can preemptively cover two separate ones and leave the opening, or you can cover like one with your sword and then put the other one wherever you want to get to dictate during the fight where you want them to attack, right? So we have these three options, okay? And we had talked about when you attack, though, you need to cover the second line, right? So if say I'm attacking here, I am during my attack covering the first and the second line. This way, we won. If I were to just attack here, right? Say I'm doing the one where one line's covered and one's open.
Okay.
If I were to just attack here and you disengage or you attack me in the middle, I have to now spend a tempo, which means it went my turn, your turn, and then now I'm spending a turn, right? Because I have to move to cover that new line. Versus if when I attack, I just preemptively cover both, then now, if you were to disengage, it would be a waste.
Right.
So you would have to retreat, in which case I would then just follow, right? So that's what we had previously talked about. So now, what was your question this time?
Okay, so my question was, is there a priority or on which areas to leave open when you're defending to bait the attack?
Yes.
Or is it all just you need to acknowledge the benefits and disadvantages of each one?
So both. The priority can be depending on your style. The priority might be the opening that you leave is where you're the parry you're best at.
Okay.
So this is somewhere that a lot of people fuck up. Say this is like my best parry, right?
Right.
If I'm in this guard, then now I'm negating my own best parry. So if this is my best parry and I sit in this guard, you're dissuaded from attacking up here, so I don't get to use my best parry.
Right.
Okay, I learned this personally myself. This downward parry used to be my worst parry. So, and this is my best parry. So when I sit here, what was happening is they wouldn't even attack into my best parry, they kept attacking into my worst parry.
Right.
Okay, so that wasn't necessarily good for me. It's not my worst parry anymore. But, so what I realized is if I want to use my best parry, then I need to leave that area open. So then I started fighting more down here. because now the one area that's open is the area of my best parry.
Okay.
Then, as I got more advanced, I started leaving the opening that was where their worst attack was. Because I negated having a worse parry and I adapted. So now it was like, okay, if this guy does a 2-finger palm down style, and he's always thrusting with 2-finger palm down, okay? The worst place for the parry that they do not want me to do the most is the cross parry. The reason is, if you're in a 2-finger palm down grip, and you attack me right here, if I have my sword low and I cross parry, then logically you would want to cut. The reason is because since you attack palm down, you cannot mutate around my offhand.
Right.
And you're not going to disengage down because I have the second line closed and I'm just going to parry it, right? So that leaves you one option, and that's to cut, right? But if you're in a 2-finger grip, this cut is more chunky.
Right.
So now your most logical actions are shut down by the parry I did. Okay. So I purposely would leave this open if I'm fighting a 2-finger palm down fencer so that I could parry them in the parry that counters their style, forcing them to not only do the longest movement, but the movement that based on their grip they're worst at.
Right, yeah, because this does not feel pleasant at all.
Exactly, exactly. Now, if you were a single finger grip palm up fencer, and you attack this side, now this is not the best parry for me to do because you can easily wind around it. Because you can just bend around it being palm up and in single finger grip. So now, even though I did this parry, right, you wouldn't logically cut, you would logically just mutate around, or you would have a quick little disengage under where you might be able to get there, where even if I parry here, you can do some sort of mutation that gets around my guard.
Okay.
And this is why when I attack the outside, most people say you're in mid-guard. Most people, when they attack the outside, they say to attack palm down. I don't really like this. It's really easy to stop this because, one, it's the way that my joints bend in.
Right.
2, I cannot wind around it. And then say if you're doing HEMA versus SEA, in HEMA people cut too much, and in SEA people don't cut enough. So especially if it's an SEA and they're attacking palm down, the odds of them throwing a cut is really fucking low as well. Versus if I attack on the outside and I attack palm up, I can still wind my arm, and it's not bending the way my arm bends in, it's actually bending the other way, so I'm stronger here. So a lot of people think when you attack the outside palm up that you're actually weaker, but you're actually stronger and you're allowed to mutate. So now when it comes to attacking this side, okay, if I were to attack palm up, now when I attack this side, I cannot mutate around, and I'm weaker because it's the way my arm bends.
Right.
So I would logically cut. So when I attack this side, your left side, I actually attack palm down because now I can mutate around that wall, and I don't cut as much.
Okay.
So you know based on how they're holding their sword and how you parry, which their options are based on their grip. So now you would leave the opening in order to counter that if you want.
Right.
This is why most people that fight one style are so easy to beat, because if they're like always like a palm down, most people thrust the same way they hold their sword. So it's like if they're here, they're like always thrusting like palm up.
Okay.
Or if they're like a 2-finger grip palm down guy, they're like always thrusting straight. And so usually most styles always thrust the exact same way they're holding their sword. So you know exactly which route to leave open in order to get them to attack and you to have the easy counter that negates their entire style.
Okay.
Okay, does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next. A really easy way to think about fencing is, say you're in mid-guard, is put your sword in the way and move your body out of the way.
Okay.
Super simple. That's like basic 101 for how I fence. I put my sword in the way and I just move my body out the way. Okay? Now, a lot of times we want to hide behind our weapon. I don't like when people hold their sword in the middle of their leg. Okay? So Capoferro says to do this, and his logic is kind of fucked. But, so I don't like to have the sword in the middle of my leg because now I have a decision to make on am I parrying right, am I parrying left, am I parrying low, or am I parrying high? Now, the reason why it's weird on what Capoferro says is he says to always take the straightest line to your opponent, okay? But he doesn't cover the line. He says he likes this guard the most because he can cover every line equally as fast. But if he's always trying to take the straightest line, what this means is no matter where the opponent attacks, he has to deviate from the straight line to parry and then attack.
Right.
So none of his parry and riposte will be in a straight line. If he always had the line covered, then if someone attacked, he would have a straight parry and a straight riposte. So I don't like personally having it in the middle because you have too many decisions you have to make, and then you're always deviating from the straight line on your riposte.
Okay.
Which is really weird because he preaches so much on the straight line, but then so many things he does force a deviation.
That just...
Now, the way I see it is if my sword is on the inside of my knee, so I just don't like it in line with my knee, right? It's either to the right or left. If you're on the left side of me, my sword is to the inside of my knee, okay? And I'm covering this left side. If you're to the right of my knee, my sword is on the right of my knee and I'm covering this side. Because now, it doesn't make sense for me to have the sword in the middle of my body if I'm on either side of you, because now I have to move it. So it's like if I'm on the right side of you, I'm going to have the sword on the right side of my knee, so I have an easy lockout on all the right side.
Right.
Because now it's going to take you longer to get to these targets. If I'm on the left side of you, then I'm going to put the sword on my left side, so I have an easy lockout on all the left side of my targets.
Okay.
All right, does that make sense?
It does. So, basically, your sword should be aligned with whichever eye alignment you have.
Exactly.
If you're right eye aligned, right side, and then if we were left eye, it's...
Yep, exactly.
Left. Okay.
100%, 100%. And now to even go one step further that makes it easier, right, is if we're right eye aligned, my sword has the quickest route, so I'm covering the line with my sword. So this is something that I didn't mention earlier, but I forgot I did teach about eye alignment. So the coverage depends on your eye alignment. So if I'm right eye aligned, I cover with my sword because it has the fast and the straight route. I'm not going to cover as much with my dagger because it has a curved path.
Mm-hmm.
Except what I do when I'm right eye aligned, I will a lot of times cover with both. I will preemptively have my sword on that eye, or my dagger and my sword on that same eye line. Right?
Okay.
When I'm left eye aligned, now my dagger has the faster route. Okay? So I'm going to cover with my dagger and my sword on my left side.
Dagger, sword, left side.
So now the whole left side is locked out. And then equal eye alignment, okay? The dagger has the closest route and the sword has to travel across my body. So I cover with my dagger and my sword still sometimes.
Okay.
Now equal eye alignment is a chaotic zone because you can still get to either side pretty quickly with your other weapon. It's just one is longer than the other. Mm-hmm. So in equal eye alignment, it depends if you're in high or low guard. So like if I'm low guard and I'm equal eye aligned and you're in mid guard, I would be covering with my dagger because it has the faster route, essentially, if that makes sense.
It does.
Now if I have my sword up, I could also then have my sword to the side for the coverage and covering. So pretty simple, right eye aligned, sword, left eye aligned, dagger, equal eye aligned, sword, or dagger.
Okay.
That one will depend on your goals. So now we're going to get into a drill, okay, where the enemy is going to guard up however I like, because I'll be the enemy, and you're going to cover the line. And I'm going to be moving through different guards, and you're going to keep the line covered, okay? And it's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to start in different guards. You're going to say, I have the line covered, and I'm going to attack completely straight, and we're going to see if you really have the line covered.
Okay, first line and second line, or just first line?
So right now, just worry about the first line.
Okay.
Okay?
First line. Okay.
So we're going to start nice and simple. Boom, and mid guard. So you're going to cover the line. If you feel the line is covered, then tell me to attack.
I feel the line's covered.
I'm going to go completely straight, and that is perfect coverage. Do you see how I barely missed you? That is exactly what you want. Okay? So now we're going to try another one.
All right.
Very good. Very good.
And for these, does it matter whether I'm palm up or palm down?
It can matter. Yes,
okay.
It can. Yeah, so...
Going back to your discussion about whether somebody's using a 2-finger palm down grip or a
correct.
1 finger.
And it's kind of tricky because, like, say you're pointed towards here. Like, when we were talking about our palm down riposts,
right.
Like, you can hold palm down to cover the line because my arm's not extended, it can still be strong here.
Okay.
But it can be more risky where once I'm palm down here and I parry, then thrusting palm down can be risky. So you can be here palm down and have a palm down parry. Sorry, I meant when I riposte. You could be here and have a palm down parry and then riposte palm up.
Okay.
Or I can be here, palm up, and parry, and you attack and parry. Now I can also repose, palm down. The trick though, so there is an answer to attacking palm down on the outside. I probably should have covered that. It's not necessarily you shouldn't do this. There's a specific way you do it. What I don't want to do is if we're right eye aligned and I attack palm down, I don't want to attack right here with my arm. Because my arm is weak and it's arm-to-arm strength.
Right.
And yours is not extended, which means you're probably going to win this. When I attack this side, I step into their blade to the right. So I go like this. The reason is now my body is behind my arm, giving you a hard parry, and I switch my target to your left shoulder. So when I'm here, I target the left shoulder because now if you were to parry, you'll push it across yourself and hit yourself. Okay. So if you do attack palm down, you usually just don't want to attack that close shoulder, which now you're attacking a target that's farther away, which isn't necessarily fully bad because you're going to attack usually whatever's closest or presented at the time, or if you have a specific goal.
But in that example, you very convincingly gained my blade, and by the time I could get the game back, I would already be hit.
Yep, and most people here, if they parry with their sword or their hand, they'll push it in themselves. So even if you parry in with your sword, you parry in with your dagger, or even if you parry up with your dagger. So all of them, you're going to end up pushing in yourself because I'm going to be targeting like right here. That way, either way you go, you will push it.
Okay, so based on that geometry, this is a different question. We can do that again. It seems weird, I don't know, I guess this geometry, because I would have to disengage.
Correct. And if I attacked properly, I would have already been right covered. Here.
So then there's really nothing we can do except retreat back out and reset.
In which case, I follow.
Okay.
That's why fencing's actually really simple, because it's like if I do this, they have this option to do this. If they do all this option, I do this.
Right.
So it's funny because there's a million nuances in fencing, but there's only so many options they can do based on how they're holding their sword and where they're standing, which is why we do so much stance and grip and stuff education, because then it's like, okay, well, they're holding their sword this way, this is what they're going to do logically.
Right.
And then you just, as soon as they step into the ring, you just look at what stance they get in and you go, okay, they're going to do this. Especially the people that are super true to a master, and if you study that master, then I'm like, okay, I know these are all the concepts he follows, so they just limit themselves, and you know exactly what they're going to do because they're just so limited to their same options, which is kind of illogical in my opinion because the masters wouldn't have wanted them to do that. But whatever. Some people prefer the history or whatever aspect versus the combat. So we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna stance up, and I'm gonna end up throwing in some weird ones that are tricky. Okay. So let's just go here. We'll go equal eye alignment, little guard.
Let's see. I would say,
very good. You had to make a minor adjustment, but that was it.
Right.
Okay. Let's go here.
So, am I worrying about cuts and thrusts, or
just thrusts?
Just thrusts. Okay.
Just the gun shoot. Very good. For some reason, a lot of people really struggle with that one. The reason why so many people struggle with that one is because they forget that they can use their feet. That's why we break this down to simple sword in the way, body out of the way, right? Right. Because if I'm here and you just put your sword in the way, and I'm like here and you just put your sword in the way, now you're like, why would you wouldn't want to move them feet out the way?
Absolutely.
This is why feet are a part of the coverage and they're so important, that footwork.
Okay, so then for the defense and to cover the line, should I think feet, get out of the way, move my body out of the way, or use my sword to build a shield?
I like to do both.
Do both? Okay.
The cost is you end up using two tempos sometimes, but only if you're like lagged out. So like the thing is, it's like when you're in guard, you usually don't want to move your sword too often. So like when you're in range, not when you're in guard, when you're in range. So for example, if you're in a guard and say you're in like mid guard, and I like to do sword in the way, body out of the way, I don't do this like right here. Right? I don't do this like in range where I'm like sword in the way, body out of the way. Instead, I might like, if I'm like here, I might like, and say you change guards, like I might like disengage a little bit. I'm like, okay, sword in the way, body out of the way. And then what I do is I just stay on it like glue. Okay, and then I'll mirror their steps too, so I'll do it at the same time. So say you step and you change guards. I'm trying to do it like at like the same time.
Okay.
And then I'll counter it, and then I get the flow down, and then I know where usually they're going to move before they move, and where they're going to move their sword before they move, and then I'll attack them in the middle of their movement.
Okay, but that all goes to the setup, like you were saying. You start assessing as soon as you step into the ring, and try to control the fight there. So before you close range.
And if I'm at a tournament, like I'll be chilling and I'll watch everyone else get warmed up, so I already know which style they do and which parries they're going to do before I even fight them usually.
Okay.
And then I'll like look and see which ones like seem to be like the best, and I'll kind of note them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same drill essentially, where you're covering the line, except now when I attack and you have that gain, you're going to attack me back and maintain the gain, building off of what we worked on before about maintaining the gain throughout the attack.
Okay.
Okay. That's simple.
Okay.
Very close on that one.
Yeah. But, so, how would I... Let's fix this one while we're here.
Okay, I would just be, if you're, so right here you kind of had a decision to make where you were like, am I going false edge or true edge or flat?
Right.
And you kind of ended up in the middle of all three. So it would be, if you're here, you would just go here a little bit more and you would make that a false edge one.
Okay.
Or you could go flat, but if you go flat, then you would have your wrist out more. Now, the cool thing is this will depend on your repost. If you parried with the flat from here, what your repost would look like is this.
Right.
If you parried with the false right here, now what your repost would look like is usually this rotational push-out step going to here.
Okay.
Or you could just sink in here, but that is risky.
Yeah.
That part.
Okay.
And then if you parried with the true, then now you would either repost like this and step to the side like we said, or when you would go to repost, you would shift to that palm up.
Okay.
So let's work that one again.
Yeah.
So you ended up same thing again on the decision. So on this one, what we're going to do, for you it seems like what's going to be most natural is doing this false arm pair.
But, okay, so if we do that again, let me just try adjusting.
You can also adjust your feet a little bit more if you want.
Yeah, that's...
Okay, now the thing right now is I can tell you right now that line is open. That's one of the things about being like palm up right there, is this line is open a little bit more, unless if you are in 2 fingers straight on posture, it closes it a little bit more, because it ends up being more like this rather than being like this.
Okay, so then my question is, did that line, moving my sword out more though, just feels...
Turn the palm down. There you go. Now you see how this vector changes it just by being palm down, shuts this off a little bit.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so
but it's...
So I'm here. There you go.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes the difference.
Okay, now maintain and repost. So that one you won't necessarily turn to palm up. For this one, since you were already where you were palm down,
right?
You're going to thrust palm down, but you're going to move this way into it to make it stronger.
Oh, so I step
into it. Yep.
Okay.
So let's do that one again.
But I have to have another question.
Yeah.
So if you go back to set that up again, when I'm here, other than, I guess the part that I don't, the part of this that doesn't feel necessarily good. Okay, this feels good if you attack out, but when we don't have contact in the blades, this seems very easy for you just to initiate a movement or feint, but not really do anything, and then come inside, where I would have to...
That would be the logical action.
Where I would have to...
100%. Yep.
Pair it cross.
Correct. So this is what gets us into fencing 101, right? So you cover that first line, you know they're not going to go there logically, right? So you know I would just go to the inside. So you just carry it inside. This is why you kind of don't really want to think about covering the line too much. Eventually you'll get to the point you just always have perfect coverage and measure, and then you know that they're always just going to attack to the next place. So the first place that you're covering is kind of always just the setup, knowing that they're going to go to whatever the next opening is.
Yeah, going back to the gun analogy, wherever the tip of the sword, wherever the gun's pointed, that you want to get behind the sheet.
Exactly, exactly. So you know if you have this covered, you know realistically I'm not going to attack them.
Right.
Now, but this is why coverage is so important. Because if I'm here and you don't cover that perfectly, and you think it's covered perfectly, then you're going to get hit there. And it's going to be quick.
Okay.
So that's why it's so important to have that perfect coverage. And like at the high, it's funny because like you learn basic shit. At intermediate, you start doing all this like crazy shit. And then at the high level, whoever fucks up on the basics will lose. So at the high level, like you better have perfect basics and perfect coverage. Because there's people I'll fight even in the finals and like they just won't have the line like covered perfectly and they think they do, and then they'll get sniped like that. And just, it'll be the smallest part they won't have coverage and you'll sneak in there.
Just changing my hand from one way to the other way.
Yep. And that's why it's so important on why I say like people that only use one guard, like, and they're not adaptive, it's super bad because you can move to a position with your feet, and if they're a second too late, that coverage is open.
Right.
So it's like, it's funny because people at the higher level actually tend to be, not at the higher level, people that like just do one style and are really good at it, end up actually being really easy to catch in tempo. Because they're so used to just staying in the same style that when you get them to step, sometimes they're like not fully aware of like a simple adjustment of just like moving from one style to another can shut it down without you having to sacrifice the wrong tempos.
Right. Okay. And then, so for this one, it would just...
So step your body into it. You want to go over here.
Oh, that's right.
So step into it this time. A little better.
So let's. So when I'm stepping into that, am I doing just the lunge, or should I do the gaining the blade drill that we did last time? Move your foot, get the blade with the back foot, and then attack. Because that's what messed me up on that last.
So I attacked into you, right? And you had the line perfectly covered, which means you got the gain. You didn't. You had the gain on the defensive action. So now you're good to go. Now you just have to maintain it. So you don't need to do the double step. This is why what ties in before, where I said that parry is an defensive action or an offensive action done at defensive time.
Right.
Because if I didn't have it perfect and you attacked me, right? Now I have to gain and then repost. If I have it done perfectly and you attack into the game, then I don't have to make the movement. I just straight repost.
Right.
So this is why I say the parry is actually an offensive action done defensive time, because you're not parrying to keep yourself safe. You're parrying to save you time on your repost, so you have a one-tempo repost, and your feet keep you safe.
Okay, so that was what I was doing with that second one, trying to work on that double step.
Perfect.
Front foot, back foot. So.
There you go. Now, literally, you could literally just extend, just like that. That was good. That was very good.
Okay.
Okay? So now we're going to start to add in that second line coverage on your repost.
Okay.
Okay? So we'll run even that same one again. Now when you attack, cover the second line. So it's going to be under on this one, like this. Yep, we're going to attack like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I would want to disengage under right there like that.
Okay.
Very good. Very good. Now let's try a different place. Good, and second line coverage.
That would be...
Yep, there's...
Here.
Yeah, because, yeah, two options. Yep, there's
because
where my tip is closest.
If you just merged it and moved your body...
Yep, so that's going to be what I would try to do, is try to wind around here. Because if I parry here, I'm going to try to wind around. So that was very good. So that one, you'll have two ways you can go. You can either go here, or you can go here. And it depends on how high up your tip is. Because if my tip isn't really high up, I'm going to go here. If my sword's lower, my hand's lower, my tip's high up, then I would go here, because my sword's going to provide all that coverage I need. But when you fully extend, sometimes it'll be high like that.
Okay, so does it matter what your opponent does based on your tip? Like, if we do the same thing. So here, I just feel like it's going to be quicker for you to like disengage and go down, maybe.
then you would have your hand down.
Down.
Yeah.
So but that doesn't feel good either.
This one can feel a little bit more awkward, but get low. So get low. There you go. That eliminates more targets.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
And that one tends to work more with a dagger. So like in single sword, it's a little bit harder to have your hand down here. So you would end up being more low like this.
Okay, to get the coverage out.
Versus like with dagger, I could just hold it here and it'll block my whole leg.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, a couple more.
Okay, so then I'll go.
Very good. Very good. Okay, and now you are strong to strong here, but it's okay because you have your offhand on it to allow this to get in.
Yeah, based on what we were talking about with the leverage and the other stuff. Because my assumption is I can just flick my blade in before you can disengage and get that.
So now we're going to do this last one. Very good. And now repost and cover the second line. The repost is easier than what you think.
Yeah, it's just right here.
Just right here. Just like that, yep. Most people make the mistake where they try to go high. So like a lot of people will go here and then they'll go to bring their sword high to hit me. And then I'll just parry and stab them.
Yeah, but I don't know why you would get there anyway, since your sword can't do anything and I hardly have to move.
Yep. But for some reason, I don't know what it is, it's mostly because people are obsessed with trying to like kill the other person, that they don't just take whatever target is presented.
So then, okay, so based on that last drill then, why would anybody, how can I ask this? So it makes sense to me that nobody would really attack my leg when the line's covered just because all of the negatives.
Correct.
So then if we just back up, so where, realistically, would my second line be over here?
Yeah, it's going to be up. It's going to be like right here. All this.
Okay.
Yep. Correct.
Got it.
Right. Good. So that was the last one. That was good.
Nice. Okay.
That was good.